Okay, fantastic. All right, it is Tuesday, December 16th. This is the North Smithfield Charter Review Committee. Call to order. Roll call. Ms. Newberry?
Here.
Mr. Cristoforo?
Here.
I'm totally blanking on you.
Kevin Newton.
Newton, thank you. Mr. Newton?
Here.
The chair is here. Like I said, this is meeting number 4 or 5 today. Public comment from our packed house tonight. It doesn't seem like there's going to be much of anything unless you have anything to say, Mr. Administrator. Okay. Meeting minutes are going to be tabled till next week, our next meeting. And then we can start with our for discussion, consideration, and action town charter in areas of review. I don't think we have any further discussion about the former CRC documents. And are there any further recommendations from the administration tonight? Okay. So then for our next item on the agenda for discussion, consideration, and action, the list and priorities for ballot questions. As we had our last meeting, we went through a list of things that we felt were priority for the town and moving forward. One being the staggered terms for staggered terms and extended terms for the town council, the state law updates, facilities director or asset manager, some better detail with the personnel board, identifying how we can have accountability with all, potentially starting an annual all hands on deck meeting, and then also starting to discuss a community engagement department. So I thought I printed out Mr. Ozier's initial charter review question that it had extended the staggered terms, and I apologize, I printed the wrong page, so I don't have that with me, but I do have the PDF that I can share with the group. I can either do that right now because it seems like everybody's got most of the document.
Can we also add onto the for discussion, consideration, and action? I don't see, and I was trying to remember what was missing earlier, and it came to me on the drive over.
Sure.
School committee.
School committee.
Because I know they had recommendations that they wanted to see made.
From what I remember, that could dovetail into the state law updates, because I know the chair of the school committee, she gave us the state law
Right.
that had recently been passed.
Yeah.
So that could dovetail very
Okay.
easily, but we'll make sure we track that. Let me forward this PDF to everybody.
Can you, I don't have, my email that you have is not on my phone. Can I give you a
Okay.
different email?
You sure can.
Thank you.
So pass that along to everybody. So ultimately, what this question would be, was put together pretty well already, and we can discuss the language of it, the adjustments if we need to. The question states, commencing on December 1st, 2028, because this would effectively be on the 2026 ballot for review and passage by the town. Shall the charter be amended to establish that the town council shall be elected to serve for 4-year staggered terms, with the following changes being made to the charter? So that simply states that obviously the town council terms would go from 2 years to 4 years, but then in implementation of the staggering, let me just read this. The top 3 candidates with the largest number of votes would start the 4 years, and then the remaining 2 would do a 2-year term, and then that would be how the staggered terms begin. So effectively, those that are elected in 2028, the top 3 vote getters would serve their 4-year term till 2032, and then the next, the last 2 counselors that would be elected into place would serve from 2028 to 2030. And then after that point, they would go from 2030 to 2034. Are there any other thoughts? I know one of the things that we did talk about was kind of a checks and balances with the understanding that there is the recall process that we have put in place in the charter. Any further thoughts, comments?
Chairman, have you looked at how that would impact the term limits?
So in the draft that was put out, it would limit for term limits. I know right now it's a 10-year term limit, 10 consecutive years.
I
So
thought
that,
I thought it was 8.
8, yeah.
is it 8?
Yeah.
Oh, so then it would still remain the 8.
Okay, so you, effectively, if you're on a 4-year term, you can only serve 2 terms.
Yep. And then after 4 years have passed, you can go back, you can re-up yourself. So it's not like if you served your 2 4-year terms for 8 years, then the 2 years go by, you can't jump in on that election. You'd have to wait the full 4 years. That's how that's.
So what happens
worded.
if you're one of the candidates who does not get the 4-year term, but gets a shorter term as the first phase?
Yeah, that's not articulated in the term limits here.
Then you're effectively saying that you can only serve 6 years.
Okay, that's true.
6 years?
Yeah, because if you're only getting like 2 years for your first, because you're in the lower number, and then, so you run again, then you get 4 years, it's total 6 years. So you're cutting that person out of 2 years. Just for
That's probably why
conversation.
it's not articulated in here.
Yeah, so that's one point that needs to get,
Clarified?
yep.
That's going to be a hard one to figure out.
No,
No.
I don't think it's a problem. It's just something that needs to be put out put into the language
It's only going to be effective for that first 2 years.
for 2
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, for
Right.
2
Yep.
people. So.
Yeah, but if you're elected for 2 years and then you're elected for 4 years, if we're sticking with the 8-year limit, then you could only be reelected for another 2 years.
No. You couldn't be re-elected.
You-
You would
you
only
would
have
stop
6
after
years
6
and you'd
years.
stop.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because
okay.
you need
So-
someone that's doing a 4-year term.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you'd almost have to, and again, it could get complicated, for those who are on the 2-year cycle,
Yeah.
then you would say that those people, because it's only a one-time event,
Right.
Right.
say those people could serve up to 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
because that would allow them their first year 2 years, one another term 4 years, so they only get 6 years. They do another term, then that's 4 more years, that's 10 years.
Yeah.
So you're shortchanging. You can do whatever you want, I just say,
Yep.
you're gonna have to
No.
really think that one through.
Mhm.
Right.
Certainly. Yeah, because then that defeats the purpose of getting everything staggered, because then when we're in our second round in,
Right.
Yeah.
they'd have to resign 2 years in if they did get reelected or something. Okay. And again, for the folks that are watching from home or will watch from home, this is similar to what we're already doing with the school committee, and they have found success with that. I think the conversations, just to remind everybody, that we've had up here were that, 2 years, while it's a good checks and balance for, keeping people in line and everything, and we've heard that comment, it gives the opportunity for those counselors to actually start moving stuff a little bit better, because they're not 1 year in, and then the second year, they're already starting to think, okay, reelection, what do I need to do for reelection, rather than, moving projects forward, moving budget cycles through, whatever may come down the road, they can actually be able to focus on it And then with the staggering, it gives the ability to have that institutional knowledge that we've all talked about, similar to how the planning board is set up, the zoning board is set up, the school committee. It seems that.
Everything else in town is set up that way except for the council.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then that gives some level of continuity, because in the past, we have had entirely new councils come in and things stall out and get kicked down the road, and, things just get mixed up and lost at times.
I guess we could look at how the school committee manages their term limits and mirror that for this.
I think the same. I don't think they have term limits, though.
Really? Meaning like 2-4 if somebody, or do they do a 2-year, 4-year?
Well, when they did their staggered terms, that got put into effect in 2010.
So everybody does 4-year. And so the council
Okay.
isn't going to be doing 2-year and 4-year. You just need to offset it that first time by a couple of the people having a 2-year term.
Okay.
Everybody else has a 4-year term, and then it'll be on, so the 2 of them have 2-year, the rest of them have 4-year. And then once that's done, then those 2-year people will be, it'll be offset so that you're
Right.
having them stagger, so there's continuity at all times. So nobody, there's always people who know, who sort of have that institutional knowledge going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I missed that whole.
It's okay.
It's all good. Yeah, the language is very similar to this first section of membership term for school department. However, I'm not seeing anything about term limits. That could be. Yeah, I don't see anything on term limits for them.
It says that shall be elected at large at the regular biennial elections in even-numbered years to serve for a term of 4 years and until his successor is elected and qualified. So I would say that that's until they've been replaced through an election.
Yep.
That's how I would read that.
Okay. So, any further discussion about that for the term limits in town council?
Are we determining if that's one that we want to proceed with, or are we going to present all?
I think, at this point, the list that we have right now, I think we should work to present to council, and then also work to get, this was our initial list, and then we could work with council, we can work with the public at large, kind of get a read on how they're feeling, because obviously, if people are, the majority of folks that come and speak during our meeting or council meeting say otherwise, then we could certainly rethink that, and we have the language ready and prepared, but then if we need to pull it, we can pull it.
Okay.
I know, exciting stuff tonight. For the state law updates, I know we had spoken at our last meeting that we would invite the town solicitor and also the town clerk to kind of explain the process of how we would go about identifying all the adjustments and revisions that we would need. From my understanding, to date, we can still do a update the charter to comply with state law kind of question. I don't know what the ramifications would be if the majority of the town voted no, which would seem odd because
Silly.
the state law would rule anyways. But that way, Joanne and David can run us through what it would be to work with the third-party consultant that would come in basically highlight all the differences that are made, and then go through with that process. So I know we had talked at our last meeting too, if there were any specific questions on how that would work, that I could get over to David so he could start thinking about it to have some responses for us. I didn't know if the committee tonight had any additional questions, or if we.
No,
Not at this
personally,
point.
I feel like if we just have them here to go through what that looks like,
Okay.
that's fine.
I did mention it to David, that
Okay.
we wanted to invite him. I did not mention it to Joanne.
Okay. Because I recall you were saying that Joanne, in her budget, had a line item for this sort of thing with that third-party consultant. So I know she's been, is it E-code?
Yes.
Okay. That, that they've been going through like zoning and all the other stuff that's on our website with that. So I'll make sure I'll extend the invite to the two of them so that they can explain the process and we get a good understanding of that. So then the next item was the facilities director and asset manager. I know we spoke extensively about, maintaining our buildings, making sure that we have someone that the Asset Management Commission can work with, and there can be almost the administrative piece of the Asset Management Commission that they felt that they were missing. I know it's been discussed in the past about a facilities director to oversee all the town-owned buildings, making sure that there's an assessment and plan moving forward for the 5, 10, 15, 20-year plans for building maintenance. Did we have any other further comments on that?
The only thing I want to point out, it's one thing to
Microphone.
effectively enable this.
I get yelled at when you don't use your mic.
That's all right, my wife will yell at me when I get home. It's one thing to have the authorization to fill that position under the charter. It's another thing to actually have the baseline on which they can do their job. We don't. We're going to be going to the town council in January to start a first phase, sort of a prototype to demonstrate. The last thing we need, in my opinion, is to hire a consultant to develop a big document that says, this is what asset management programs are. It's a waste of money. We don't need another plan. What we need is to demonstrate what this program could actually do. So we're going to go to engage a consultant, if we can figure out the money, to focus on the water system first and foremost, because we consider that to be the highest risk asset in the town right now. And we would actually do a full investigation of the infrastructure that's in the ground, because we don't know what's in the ground. A lot of those plans disappeared. They were flooded. To do an actual geocoded system that allows then the water department to effectively know when they get called out what they're dealing with, and that would then serve as the baseline. Okay, now that you have that information, to develop a software system or to buy something off the shelf that you plug that information in, and it then begins to prepare a maintenance management plan over whatever cycle that they want, and that's what the facility manager would use. So you're going to have a facilities manager without that baseline information, he or she can't do anything, because we don't have any information in this town. So we're trying to demonstrate first to the council to get this phase done, and then come back to them and put a presentation on, this is what it can do, using the water system as the test case. Now, if you support the validity or value of this, then you would have to commit to a long-term program to not only hire a facilities manager, but also to invest every year in expanding that system to include other assets in town. So you theoretically take it from water to sewer, although we have a lot more information on sewer than we have on water. We can then do roads, buildings, all that kind of stuff. Now, if we go forward with the police headquarters. Now, all of a sudden, we would require as part of that project that we'd have to be provided all of the equipment manuals, all the data that we need, and then plug into an asset program. So the only reason I'm just going through this is I think the last thing we need right now is somebody who's empowered to be the facilities manager with no idea what to do, other than make sure the floors are clean.
So you feel like it's putting the cart before the horse
It is,
right
but that
now?
doesn't mean you can't establish it and authorize it as a potential position within the charter. The council doesn't have to fill that, you know, they don't have to fund that position at that time. They could fund it at a later point. Right now, we don't have anything within our charter called an asset manager.
Right.
So that you can put that in place, but not necessarily fund it until
Right.
you fund all the data collection.
So then, with all this data collection, though, who is shepherding that process? Who's
Well,
overseeing?
For the first phase, it's going to be shepherded by the Asset Management Commission and the administration.
Okay,
We would hire an engineer. We have an engineer selected.
okay,
We went out on RFP. So we would hire that engineer to start to prepare the plan under the oversight, in this case, of Bill Dakota, the water superintendent.
okay,
And the Asset Management Commission. So they would deal with this phase one and make sure that's completed. Then, at that point, we'd put on the presentation to the council to see if the council sees the value in it, and then therefore are willing to invest in it long-term, because it's going to probably take, I would say probably at least 6 successive years of investing in just data collection and importing the data into the system so that it's fully operational.
okay,
The reason why we did it this way is because what I advised the Asset Management Commission, if you go forward with just a plan, a document, then the council chooses not to fund anything, you've just wasted a lot of money for another plan to sit on the shelf. If you invest it on the water system in terms of the data collection side, then in the worst case scenario, if the council chose not to invest in it going forward, you're left with something that we currently don't have, which is clear understanding of our water infrastructure. And that has incredible value to the town.
So, say step one goes swimmingly well,
Yeah.
and council approves everything, that starts moving forward, and then we start to get other additional things online. We get the police station, we get the Howell, we get, you know, an assessment of this building and all the other, you know, buildings that we have. I think at that point, we still will need someone on
Yes.
the administrative side, because we don't want to continually go out for RFP or go to the master price agreement and continually hire different engineers that may, you know, have their own little input.
We're always going to have to hire an engineer to do data collection. You know, and that's, I don't think it really matters. I mean, we do have the 3 on-call engineers that
Yep.
we have on board.
Yep.
Only one responded to our RFP.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we're okay there, and I don't see that as a problem in using them on the data collection side.
Sure.
I think, when do we need an actual body under the best case scenario? If we got through the water system side, Bill Dakota was more than capable of running that. My fear is we're going to lose Bill. That
Yeah.
whole department is retiring. So that's another issue that we're going to have, and we're trying to hire somebody now to start to backfill so we can get ready. I would say where we really need a person is when the police department is finished. So let's say the police department will get finished in fall or late summer of 2027. Okay, so I would say that we would probably need somebody in place going into fiscal year 2028, which starts July 1, 2027 through June 30th of 2028. I think at that point, we have the water. Hopefully, then we'll get a decision to invest in the next data collection side of the asset management program, whatever that decision is, whether it's roads or whatever it may be. And at the same time, the police complex is that'll be finished, and hopefully Hollowell will also be on the same timeline, and therefore we have 2 brand new buildings
Yep.
with all the data that we're going to have in those brand new buildings, And then we have a fairly robust beginning of a program, and that would be for fiscal year 2028,
Okay.
I think. So you can still authorize putting the position
Yeah.
in the
Right.
charter. I'm
And
just saying, you don't want to fill that position
Right.
until we've got
So
critical mass.
two comments on that. First comment is that it makes sense to focus on it being in the charter now because by the time that the next Charter Review Commission comes around, then you're kind of behind the eight ball. The other thought was, we had also talked about in our priorities, potentially making the Charter Review Commission standing. So we may want to think about that in regards to these types of situations where it's something that's rolling more than,
Right.
and that could be done by ordinance, but.
I was gonna say, that's
Yeah.
not a charter update, but
Right.
I agree.
Yeah. Also, there was discussion, I don't think you were here, and I know it's a very sort of touchy subject about anything having to do with schools, also having to do with town, but, you know, the school buildings are
Town-owned.
town-owned. Is there something where there could be a person who is in
Yeah.
charge of both of those in terms of?
In the perfect world, it makes all the sense. When we talk about town government and schools, it's never a perfect world because it's always seen as a zero-sum game. It's not just North Smithfield. All cities and towns that way. I think it's going to be really important in working with the current leadership in the school department and school committee, as well as we're going to have a new superintendent
Yep.
in August. Or it may even be slightly earlier than August, because I know the current superintendent's going to leave in August. That we look at how can we partner to share a person as opposed to them having their own person and we having our own person. There's a lot of economies there. They're still going to need somebody who's going to do facility maintenance.
Right.
It's sort of the quote-unquote janitorial staff. Totally different than asset manager. And I think that's a really hard thing we have to keep pressing the public. They're two separate issues here.
Yeah.
So I think there's a real opportunity if we can get the school committee to understand the value of that, then that's a really a good path to go down. I don't think that should be written in charter, because that's overstepping our bounds, but it certainly can be encouraged for basic economies of scale.
Yeah, I mean, in our charter for the buildings and grounds, the Department of Public Works, at the request of the school committee and with the approval of the town administrator, may maintain and care for school buildings and grounds, provided that the costs are charged against the appropriations for the public schools.
Yeah, and we're
So-
kind of dealing with that, and I'm not really, I haven't, I'm not going to say this. I haven't spoken to Ray yet, so
Okay.
I don't think it's fair to him. But we're actually looking at one of those issues right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how can we help them?
Right.
But if we help them, then how do we deal with the
Mhm.
costs associated with it?
Yep. Yeah, and building maintenance in town, as it is with other towns, has just always been an afterthought. It's a reactionary instead of being proactive. So the thought was with this facilities director or asset manager is that they can assist the town in making sure that we don't have 11, what could have been perfectly useful buildings down at the Howell property and not have to tear them down because of just poor maintenance, where we wouldn't have to consider new versus renovations at the police station. You've probably saw the condition of this building before it was renovated, and my gosh, the fact that they got it to the state that it's in now is somewhat nothing short of a miracle.
Well, even the old Memorial Town Hall.
And
The fact that we were operating a town government out of that building,
right.
which was completely illegal, blows me away. Luckily, we have an organization that came in that's prioritized taking care of that building.
But that's the thing, though. We can't rely on the
We
Heritage
can't just keep
Association
giving the
Oh,
Heritage
absolutely
to
not.
maintain.
Association
We can't just say,
business
here,
buildings.
here's a
I
building.
think what that
Please take care of
proved,
it."
though, is that when you bring an organization in, or when there's an organization that prioritizes preservation of the asset, you can do
Right.
great things.
Mhm.
And they've done great things.
They have.
But before that, it's like, my God. I was in a meeting, just got out of a meeting at the police department. It wasn't a meeting, it was an event for the Explorers, a whole new group that they gave awards and stuff, great little program. And I was talking to, oh, I'm sorry, but this is the beauty about getting older. He's on the school committee. Just lost a ton of weight.
Chris Simpkins?
Chris Simpkins. Because his son is on the Explorer program. And I'm looking at Chris Simpkins, I'm saying, every time I come into this building, I am so embarrassed as a municipal leader. It's just deplorable. How did it ever get like that? It's just sad, you know? And as you know, it's the old adage when we talk about road maintenance. If you don't maintain roads in a well-planned way, then those roads no longer can be maintained by repaving. They have to be reconstructed. And that's going to cost us 5, 6, 7 times more money. It's just understanding those ROIs that the town council can make good budget decisions with data. So they can know if we don't invest in this this year, it's going to cost us this next year.
And even just understanding life cycle costs too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the roof here. Okay, this was completed, 10 years ago. We got another 15 years for the roof, and then we got to consider a roof replacement because that's typical lifespan. So, and then that gets planned for in the budget and addressed accordingly. But
and that's going to be tied in very closely with changes that we're going to be making with the capital improvement budget account, because right now we operate it like it's a Christmas club. It's silly. We have like little envelopes where we want a new truck, but we can't afford a truck this year, so we put X amount of dollars in the budget that doesn't cover the cost of the truck, and we don't spend it, and we put it into a reserve contingency account. That's dumb, So what we should be doing is, as part of the annual capital planning stage, as part of the budget process, we should be looking at, okay, these are the assets, and this is how much money we should be putting into the capital reserve account based on the total cost of all these assets. Put it into that account so that when the roof comes due, we're planned, we're ready, we've got the money, we can do it. That's the stuff we need to be able to do. It makes life a lot easier from a budgeting standpoint for the council.
yeah. Anything else? No? Okay. We can move down to the personnel board then.
So last time we talked about personnel board, there were some questions around the duties. I had a conversation with Sue Bernier after that last meeting. That it seems that duties 1 and 2, when we read through them, appear to be the tasks that were given to the board when it began, but are no longer relevant or applicable to what they do. So 1 and 2 are just there as this is what you needed to do when you started. Number 3, the only tests that are administered are actually done by, they're for the police, and they're done by a third-party testing agency, so the personnel board does not do that. Number 4, they do. And number 5, Sue was not certain who that fell to, and it's great that Mr. Gibbs is here so he can tell us sort of who owns that piece. It's examine all payroll covering classified employees for the purpose of determining that all persons to whom payments are to be made are properly employed and have been approved and certified to the appointing officers by the personnel board as to eligibility, and no authority shall exist to certify the payroll or to make any payment to persons not properly employed as herein provided in any other agency than said personnel board. So I'm assuming that's the new HR.
No.
Oh,
Busy.
okay.
Payroll.
Okay, payroll.
Yeah.
All right. So that is listed as part of the personnel powers and duties. So I don't know how we want to approach that, but I just thought, I wanted to give some clarification after we talked about it at our last meeting.
This is one where I would like to rely on our solicitor and administrator, because it seems like this is an overhaul of almost the entirety of
The
the
entire,
section.
right, exactly.
Yeah, I would suggest it not just be the solicitor for the solicitor, that for their,
Okay,
for the operations, it should be the finance director,
okay.
Mhm.
which personnel is under the finance director.
When did their responsibilities change?
Well,
Like, when did they start to see a shift? And
so when I was talking to her about this, I mean, she's been on the personnel board for quite some time, and it's the entire time that she's been on, this has been her role, and her understanding of the role is that they perform duty number 3. That was pretty much it.
okay,
She did say her husband preceded her on the board, and that he sort of had much more, the board had much more of an understanding of what people's pays, what the different pay grades were, and you know, what people got paid, but that's not their responsibility anymore. So, and she said that was during Dan Andrews' administration, so it was quite a while ago. So it's been a long time.
okay.
She also said that we are the first, we're the first charter review committee that she knows of that has ever reached out and said, is this what you all do? And perhaps the other charter review committees had bigger fish to fry and were worried about other things. But I think,
If it has any value, and you'll tell me, I didn't want to do this at all. If you can, that's under what section of? the-
personnel board.
The personnel board. I can have that reviewed by Tony
Mhm.
and his staff, and come back to you with a clarity in terms of what role do they perform, or what role do the personnel work. Since I've been here, and basically I adopted whatever was being done, the personnel board's role was effectively to be the interview board associated with the hiring
Mhm.
of non-employee staff. Of
Correct.
the administrator.
Yeah.
That's what they do,
Yeah,
and that's what they have been doing.
Right.
They've provided no other oversight or administrative function whatsoever.
Mhm.
It's all part of the finance department,
right.
which is finance, payroll, HR is actually underneath the administrator.
Mhm.
And that's just basically making sure that, you know, recruitment is done right, that people are onboarded right, or they're off-boarded right.
Mhm.
That's his job.
So in past so she said it's been very variable based on the administration. In some administrations, they sit in on all the interviews. In some administrations, they're just performing what they're doing now. So it's been a very variable situation, and I don't think that's a great thing for
Well,
the town.
if you-
Personally, I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but
Yeah.
that's my feeling on
Clearly,
it.
the personnel board should not be providing administrative functions.
Correct.
It's a matter of, you know, figuring out what is the right path for them to be on.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll have finance give you a very brief overview of how it's done right now, what they do, and then you can use that information.
Okay.
going forward.
Yeah.
I'll have to do that by the end of this week.
Great.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know it appears that the whole section of the personnel board was put into place in 1975, and then
Never updated.
that was, there was non-union employees at will, which was updated in 2014.
Right.
So that was the last time that was looked at.
Yeah, it also talks about compensation, so,
Right.
yeah, it's just very out of date and needs
And
a
one thing
little,
we're also doing, we're just now, since we finished the employee manual, and we finished the onboarding process, documented onboarding process, we are now teeing up to do a compensation benefits analysis for town employees. We're trying to figure out the best methodology to follow in doing that. I have every expectation that when we actually start to put that structure together, as we go forward with it, we will include the personnel board as part of that. Because we're going to be talking about what are the pay scales and benefits for various employees in town hall, and how does that compare relative to like communities in the region, and then come back with some recommendations as to how we can, if we are not competitive in certain areas, then we would come up with a recommended strategy for
yeah.
increasing that over a period of time so that we are on par. So it'd be very important for the personnel committee to be part of that deliberation, so they fully inform of the structure going forward. And that, obviously that would have a budget impact theoretically, and then that would go to the council as part of the budget process.
Okay.
Not that dissimilar to what we do with the police contract.
Okay. All right, next on our list was the accountability with all. One of the things that we did discuss was potentially putting into place an annual all hands or all boards on deck meeting.
I mean, I don't know if it needs to be in the charter.
It doesn't. Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I don't think it needs to be in the charter, though.
See,
I know why
would-
you want it in the charter.
I would disagree, because then that means we're looking, I know we are at a time where we want to make sure that our elected officials and appointed officials are all held accountable. So that gives everybody the opportunity to see and chart out a year ahead situation. It's almost like a state of the state or a state of the union address where we get all the actors in town and understand, okay, we have, in the past, we have the 146 issue coming up. What do we need to have planning and zoning and council to do to make sure that we have better plans for that, so then that, if we need to put in water lines, we do it before the highway goes in. Just using that as an example,
Oh, I agree. It's a brilliant idea,
Yeah.
and we should be doing it. I'm wondering if the charter is the right place for
Yeah.
it.
And I think also there's another question.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I assume, an advisory role, because you're effectively interjecting yourself into the administration.
Mm-hmm.
It's the administrator's responsibility, whether it's me or somebody else.
For what?
It's my job to put together plans, strategies for the staff, and what our priorities are every year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't think this all hands on deck meeting is referring to the administration.
Is this all
Boards and
department head
committees.
staff, or is
No,
this-
No.
boards and committees.
Boards and committees.
Boards and committees.
And
As
council.
long as it's not a public thing, because it's going to be another witch hunt. And that's the last thing I need right now. People attacking the public employees.
So the thought is that, I mean, kind of piggybacking on the meeting series that I've discussed, that the town council said that we could proceed with, is having an initial, like an annual meeting for all of the boards and committees to outline what their priorities are. And like strategic planning, establishing your goals, whether it's 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, getting together to do that collectively, to understand where the synergies are, where you may segue with other boards or committees, and then the town council to, in theory, I don't want to say hold accountable, but have an understanding of,
Yeah, I read accountability with all, and I think the charter, there isn't anything in the charter to hold anybody accountable to anything. There isn't,
Other than the elections.
yes,
Right.
other than the elections. But if you violate the charter,
There's
there's
no
no
penalties.
definitions
What do you
there of
do?
what happens.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that would be more important than, or not more important than this meeting, but I think it would be more beneficial
Right.
from a charter perspective.
Accountability? What do you mean?
to include some type of, what happens when you violate the charter?
Oh,
Again, there's
you mean
nothing
like
defined in the
overall?
charter. Yeah, overall. There's nothing in there. So at this point, the charter is strictly a suggestion, because there's no teeth
There's no teeth.
to it.
Like my code of conduct.
What I will be doing as well, kind of speak to what you said, Rebecca. When we go through the budget process this year, it's going to be different. Because what we're going to be doing is that, as opposed to this process of giving you this huge spreadsheet, you know, which doesn't say anything other than it compares year to year. And then you have the budget committee have one, and it's just like, you know, go through this very arcane process. What I want to do is that we were going to break down the budget that we would submit to the budget committee and the council. We're going to have for each department. We're going to have the budget for each department, so for like the past 3 years, and we're going to have a summary. What that department achieved in the year and what it is proposing to achieve the next year. And that will tie directly into the budget request. And we would have that for each department in the administration. And then we would aggregate all that to the big spreadsheet. So it is effectively for lack, I hate the word, and I'm a planner, for lack of a better term, it's a strategic plan.
Right.
But it's a plan that was based on internal conversations among the departments and the administration when we prepare our budget. So when I sit down with each department has to submit to me their budget. I want not just their budget, I want an overview of what did you do and what do you want to do next year. And then we're going to massage that into an overall approach that's going to define what the administration strategies are for next year. So it's kind of a strategy document and provide greater clarity as part of the budget process as to where's the money going and where we want it to go forward. And I don't think we get that in the budget process. So invariably, we're doing that already. We will be doing that already internally, because we have to work with all the various departments in the administration to work through this, because ultimately, the whole administration will finalize its budget. And each of the departments are going to opine and approve that budget, which is going to be the administration's strategy for the next year. So that's kind of what we're, the direction we're going,
Well,
which is exactly what North Kingstown does.
And I think that's what the boards and committees need to do, because I often hear that boards and committees don't have any budget. They don't have any funding. Well, if you don't have goals established to inform what you would like to deliver on over the course of, the year, then how do we justify funding? So I think having an all-hands meeting at least in the first quarter for everybody, for all the boards and committees to establish what they would like to work on. You can then take that to the budget committee, request your funding, and then that would then go to the town council. But I think that I like the all-hands meeting. I don't know, I don't think it's wasting a question on the ballot, but I think there are other questions that may take
Priority.
priority.
I wonder if, because we're early, we don't have a lot of time left, but we still have quite a bit of time left before we need to make decisions on this. Do we go ahead and push this of doing sort of an all hands on deck meeting and trying it out without it being in the charter, and see how that goes? And then it sort of answers the question of, is this something that we really need to put in the charter?
Can it be an ordinance?
I don't even think it needs to be an ordinance, does it?
Well, then that would just leave it up to the discretion of the council, though, because they could call it, they could not call it, they could repeal the ordinance, they could cancel it out. So I think there's two things with our accountability, is what Kevin was talking about with the violations to the charter. How do we define what repercussions there may be if there is a violation, which is a David question in my mind.
I also feel like it varies based on each
Oh, yeah.
section, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
Right.
then
It's
you're
not gonna
really
be an
doing
easy
a
thing to
major
write up, I'll tell you that much.
overhaul, which then goes back to the point of this needs to be a standing committee.
You gotta
That's
define what is a violation.
right.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Because,
it's,
I mean, there
right.
are all sorts of things in that ordinance or that charter right now that have been
Out of date.
inherited over years and
Yep.
don't follow.
Right.
Is that a violation of the charter? Not really.
Mhm.
There's all sorts of things in the zoning ordinance that quite frankly are illegal in the state of Rhode Island,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So we have to be kind of, I think there should be different levels of what is a violation. of the
yeah,
charter.
I'd agree, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so there are real violations of the charter. Things like failure to comply with Open Meetings Act,
Mhm.
failure to comply with public access, or access to public records. All those kinds of things, I think are all really critical, but it just can't be granular because,
Mm.
you know, it just is not enforceable.
Right.
So I think we have to be a little bit more clear on what that is.
Okay.
But our, like, Open Meetings Act, what was the other one that you mentioned?
Access to public records.
Access to, aren't those managed also at the state level?
It should, but they're done by the state, but they're of local responsibility.
Okay.
So, yeah, someone could file a complaint against us with the Attorney General's office
Mm-hmm.
for violating that, but it shouldn't have to go to that. We ourselves should be policing ourselves
Mm.
pursuant to the charter, saying, hey, you know, we, such and such board or commission, you know, I have this question, and I'm not picking on them because I don't think it applies, because EMA is really different, but EMA doesn't post any of these meetings. EMA doesn't have any public records, and I'm wondering, well, but they use public resources.
Mm.
So, should they be, you know, so there's all those little things that we have to start thinking about, and going through the charter and realizing, okay, these are the hot buttons, these are the things that we really need to focus on, because those really hit to the heart of public trust.
Mm.
And I think that's the difficult thing,
Yeah.
from my perspective.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that also, you know, as a question out to David, but also I've looked at plenty of other town websites too, see what they list as potential violations of their charter if they carried it at all. Especially see what Smithfield, Burrville,
I think that's
Lincoln,
really interesting.
Cumberland does.
Yeah.
What is the ramifications?
What other
Yeah, you have to
municipalities
get
do?
pretty specific.
Yeah.
Lincoln, Cumberland, Burrville, Smithfield.
And do they have
I don't
violations?
know, I'd have to look. Those were the ones that I want to look
Okay.
at, just neighboring towns, see what they do. Because, I mean, it also messes up the process. Say we have an administrator that comes in and it says, you know, you're supposed to get the budget in at a certain time for review. Get somebody that comes in, nah, you're gonna get it in June.
So that
Like-
process is very defined.
Yes, but if there's a violation of that process and it inhibits the council from doing their job, then
Yeah.
there should be some sort of level of ramification there,
Mhm.
you know, just as a potential example.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I do like Bet's proposal. Maybe we try it
Mm.
for the next 2 years until our next election. And then if we feel as though there's value in the all-hands meeting, then the next charter review works to put it on.
Well, then I would be trying it this year,
Yeah.
Yeah,
because then this coming year, because then there could be a whole new council coming in.
yeah. I
Yeah.
intend to do it in Q1,
Okay.
sometime around when I have my baby.
Okay. Right before?
January 15th.
January 15th?
I'd like to have it
You should have
February.
planned this
February-
baby a little
February.
better.
I know, right? Like end of February. Because we discussed the,
Oh, yeah, we're gonna, the administration?
No, the boards and
No, boards and
commissions.
commissions.
Okay, just board
Yeah.
and commission, okay,
Yeah.
I got you.
No, we're gonna
Because
have,
we're already gonna have done that internally for ours.
I don't like repeating myself.
Huh?
I don't like repeating myself.
Since when?
Yeah, I would like to get it done February, March. The all-hands meeting.
do you also have buy-in from your council colleagues?
Yeah.
To do it? Okay.
Yeah, 3 different meetings. I think we said more of like an onboarding for some of our newer,
Mm-hmm.
appointed members, but also too, I think there's value in having more of just a board and committee overview. So I see two separate meetings, having just a board and committee overview for prospective members too. So not just for new members where it's like, okay, this is like the specifics of this board or this committee, but also to, for any people that are interested in boards and committees to attend, have gain a better understanding and potentially apply in the future. And then the all-hands meeting would be separate. I envision that being more like a workshop, kind of like what the Groundwater Protection Committee did.
I would love to have some public education on what the planning board responsibilities are actually to do. Because the number of times that we have requested either the solicitor or the planner to kind of identify what the planning board responsibilities are, where our limits are. Because there are some folks in town who, for the planning board particularly, think we can just say no to an application because they use brick siding instead of, clapboard siding. Or, but that's not our role. It's to make sure that it's in compliance with the comp plan and the zoning ordinance, which is very black and white.
I would venture a guess
So-
that many boards and commissions deal with that issue.
Yep,
Yeah,
so
I was just thinking the zoning board too.
Planning boards and zoning boards.
Yeah.
yeah,
Because those are regulatory functions of government, which
Yeah.
are highly significant.
yeah, and it's, I get it, it's emotional. People, it's in their neighboring properties, it's in their local neighborhoods, so it gets emotional, but, I want to make sure that before people start throwing stones at the people that are appointed to these boards, that our responsibilities only go so far.
Well, I think it's also too, people may be interested in being on the planning board and the zoning board without a solid understanding of what the guardrails are.
Right.
So ensuring that they do have that education so they can make an informed decision when applying or not applying as a result. So I like the public education piece, and I think having more of just a board and committee overview, how do they, what is the objective? How do they operate? What are some of the specifics, like zoning, planning? But that would be separate from this all-hands
Yeah.
strategic planning meeting.
And we could use the comp plan as a good starting point. I know that's up for getting revised, because we
Thank
have to,
Not until 2029,
we have to revise it every 5 years.
29, 10 years.
10 years now?
You're talking more, Mark, about that.
Was that a change with all the law changes then, too?
No, it's always been 10 years.
Huh,
I did the comp plan update in Woonsocket, it's a 10-year program.
really?
And I
Okay.
told Mark, I said, so when's it due? He said, not till 2029, and I'm gonna be gone when that happens.
Because I know Gary and I have been pushing to let's do it every 5 years, even quarterly, but,
It's state laws every 10.
okay.
And it's a very drawn-out and very expensive process. Just like what we've been doing, Mark's been doing, not me, on the zoning plan, on the zoning ordinance update.
Yep,
It's been brutal. I mean, that was almost $100,000 grant that we got. It's tough.
yeah. Okay. Moving along, unless anybody has anything else? No? Okay. I'm sorry, I feel like the back of my head has been
You're
to
good.
you
I know, I
because-
do the same thing
as
to
I've
Kevin.
been-
I'm sorry, Kevin.
It's all right.
So feel free to hit me if I'm.
I'll just,
So then next, we're talking last about the Community Engagement Department, which started to encompass things like senior services, parks and rec, the different rec leagues that we have in town, and I can't remember all the other examples that we had, but I know we talked about
Like
that.
Hollowell.
That whole process, that whole department really becoming something that is a resource for all the town residents to go and utilize and be able to have outreach, the ability to let people know what's going on, if people have questions, that sort of thing. In addition to the standard Parks and Rec and senior services that we have right now, and bringing in Howell too, once that gets on board.
I would just shoot from the hip. Community engagement, that sounds like something aggressive. What I think
Well, I was going to mention, that was one of the discussion
Like
points as
social
well.
media
Yeah.
and-
Yeah, it's recommending a community engagement model for like better outreach to the
So
community.
to me, a more, and we've talked about this
Communication and PR.
internally about, because we don't, because we don't have any staff. We don't effectively communicate on a continual basis, other than the administrator's newsletter, or, you know, if you do, you know, code red, you know, which is a problem, if we have a problem, or I'll do a notice on what I just did for the Brown University shooting, you know. Other than that, we don't have a scripted communication marketing strategy for this town. Most towns don't, except for the province does. And I think that would really be valuable, because number one, it would be pushing information out to the public, and in return, that helps engage the public. And it's also a program that could be continually reaching out to the public to get feedback, ideas, feedback on proposals, projects, whatever it may be. So that would effectively engage the public, and it would really help the town, I think, in building a relationship with the public. Because I don't think it's very strong, and I don't think it's strong between police and the public either. So that's what I see in community engagement. I see it's community marketing and communications.
No, absolutely. Theoretically, that would require funding.
Absolutely. You would have to have a trained person to run that. That's just not your off the, you know, your basic person's going to apply for a municipal job.
Well, and I
Hire
think,
an intern.
but I think it would also require like a reorganization of the administration
Well, I don't think
structure.
so at all. I
Well,
think it becomes integrated in all the departments in terms of how they work with it, but I don't think in any way it's a restructure. In fact, what I would suggest is sort of a crawl before you walk scenario, because we don't do a very good job at this, is to engage Bryant University and say, hey, and do it now for the next school year. Because they've already made their graduate student assignments. Say, we would like to engage a graduate program in communication marketing to come in and work with the town in coming up with an overall strategy as to how do we effectively communicate internally and externally. As opposed, and we could do that for pennies on the dollar.
I think that needs to happen regardless of whether or not we move forward with the community engagement department. Like having a marketing or a communication
I agree.
resource.
I think that's
But-
foundational.
Yeah, but when we were talking about this community engagement department, we really envisioned this as being more of like program operations for community programs. So, for instance, Parks and Rec, like right now, they want to be more involved in program planning. They want to be more strategic. How are we really leveraging our parks and our recreation? How are we working more closely with the senior program? How are we working more closely with some of the sports teams in town? What does this look like for Hallowell in the future? What are the programs that are going to happen at Hallowell? So instead of operating Parks and Rec and senior services and our town sports and Hallowell in silos, how can we bring that all under one umbrella?
Nobody's going to be able to do that. That is a multidisciplinary approach that effectively duplicates and can actually complement stuff that we already have in place. What we do need is somebody who can constantly look at how various dots connect and help manage that process. And if we need better public input to refine what we're doing, great, they can do that. But operating those programs, that's a very complicated thing, and that would require complete restructuring of town government.
I don't necessarily think that it's one person operating all those programs. I think that we just better establish what Parks and Rec, what our student, like how all of these similar programs are working together to deliver to what the community's needs are. And right now, that's not happening. Everybody's operating
I
separately.
disagree. I think it's.
I mean, we've talked to the boards and committees.
Well, I don't think the boards and commissions really understand all the time. I
Oh.
think a lot of this is happening. Is it happening to an optimal level? No, it's not. And I will argue it's not happening to an optimal level in part because we're resource constrained.
Mhm.
We don't have the manpower or woman power to do any of this stuff, but everybody expects us to.
Mhm.
So I think it's very easy to sit on the outside, but when you're on the inside and you see what people actually do, it's amazing how much they do with what little they have. I'm just watching, for example, Linda Tebow and her senior program, completely, utterly blown away, the stuff that they've been able to pull off and how she's been able to grow that program. That stuff is happening in a lot of places, but where they're trying to do it with very little resources to grow the program. So they're doing the best they can. We don't need someone else in that business. What we do need is someone who can really help us better understand the market and what our community needs, and that is a communication marketing strategy. And that becomes integral to feeding into the programs, and that also becomes foundational to if we want to go to the town council and ask for more money, say something in Parks and Rec, then we can effectively say, this is what the market communications team is, the person has done. This is the feedback we're getting from our community. That's why we're asking for this. So it's not just the administration talking internally, we're getting outside input into the process. I think that is much more important and creates much greater value than something that's just everybody's going to be tripping over each other. I just don't think it's workable.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying you can't think about it long term, but just shooting from the hip right now, being someone who tries to administer the staff, it's not going to work.
Are there other municipalities that have community engagement departments?
Not that I'm aware of, but I did take a look at some of our neighboring communities, and I know we have a part-time Parks and Rec staff member right now who's been doing a lot. But our neighboring towns have a full-time Parks and Rec director, and even some other towns have assistant Parks and Rec directors. So that's a two-person position
Mm-hmm.
that's helping, Lincoln has those two positions filled, and there's, I was reading that there was coordination for their senior services through all their rec sports,
Mm-hmm.
rec leagues, and they oversee all the maintenance of all the fields and parks that are underneath that umbrella. So I guess the question would then be, we're doing a lot with a little. What if we have a full-time person that can then spend, instead of 20 hours, 40 hours? I'm sure she's putting in more than 20 hours.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not trying to cut her off at the knees with what we're saying, but just from observations of what we're doing as a town and then what our neighbors are doing as towns, it seems like we're falling short.
Well, we're falling short because we don't spend as much. It's that simple.
Yeah.
I mean, as the administrator, I don't have a director of administration. A lot of cities and towns do. So a lot of cities and towns have a chief elected official. They have somebody who works with the chief elected
Yeah.
official. And that person's job is to be the constituent services, constantly on top of the constituent inquiries.
Yeah.
Right now, the administrator is doing that, running staff, doing strategic planning, doing all of it. So if you really look at cities and towns and how much they spend, there is a direct correlation between what we can do. In this town, for better or for worse, is extremely tight, and we don't spend money, and yet we expect high results. That's a complication. I've consulted with Burrillville for years. I would say Burrillville is probably an outlier, because Burrillville does a lot of good things, but they also spend money when they have to spend money. When Woonsocket spends a lot of money, I work there in the department. Pawtucket, they've got a lot of people in their plant. They got, I think, something like 12, 13 And then they have a redevelopment agency that's staffed, and they have the Commission of Commerce, who is at the City of Pawtucket. I mean, they got CJ, who is focused only on zoning. We've got a building official, zoning officer, who does both. So it's a challenge, you know, when you think about what we can do and can't do compared to our neighbors. Smithfield does a great job. Smithfield spends a lot of money. A lot of money.
For better or worse, we get what we pay for.
Yeah, and I think this town does pretty good with what we have, but I do think we underperform. We're definitely suboptimal there. But I would hope that this whole conversation about workforce, human resources, I hope that when we complete the compensation benefit study, I hope that presents a good baseline, and to have a thoughtful conversation with the council as it relates to what staffing do we really need to do the things you really want us to do, and how much is that going to cost?
Right.
I think that's the conversation we really have to have first, because it's going to be a lot more expensive than people know.
Are you also considering including other roles too that our municipality doesn't have at the moment? Like, we're talking about a communication person, we're talking about, I think you said a director of administration, or like a chief of staff, like,
What we can do when we do the HR, the benefits payroll package, that's going to really be focused on what we have, okay, and how do we compete. But what we can do is, if, I shouldn't say it like this, but if money was not the issue, if we could spend the money, what would we see as an ideal
right,
staffing plan for the town?
yeah,
And where are the holes that we have that we need to fill, and how much would we have to spend, based on the compensation benefits analysis, how much would we have to spend to fill that out? This is what the total North Smithfield Town Hall 2.0 would look like.
right, like inclusive of the facilities manager. We
Yes.
don't have that at the moment.
Or
Communication,
a
right.
manager, you know, maybe a director of administration, or maybe a hybrid model, if you will, somebody who does that, but also maybe interfaces with other departments.
A zoning and a building.
And,
What about a CIS or technical person?
yeah, right now we outsource all that.
It's very
So-
expensive.
Oh, it's super expensive, so
It's
is there
very
potential cost savings there? Or we're already paying 80 grand a year, what's another 20 to bring somebody in full-time?
Or
That's a
if-
dedicated staff for us.
Or are there other alternatives to go to what, you know, Beth mentioned, but regarding the facilities management, the school department? Is there a way that North Smithfield could partner with Bourbon
Yes.
and share somebody to do this for us? We don't all have to own it. And in a small community, we can't really own it. I've had that conversation I met with Mayor Beauchamp and Mark, and Mike Wood 5-6 months ago, saying, hey, can we look at possibly creating a regional animal control system? Instead of, I mean, we still need separate facilities, but do we need the overlap of the top person? Are there economies of scale by partnering together? Are there economies of scale instead of running a North Smithfield EMA? Can we have a Northern Rhode Island EMA, or a regional EMA? You know, because we each are all going out spending money to create our own little worlds, and yet in the end, we've got an emergency control center down in the basement here for EMA. We don't use it. We don't use it. That's the stuff. So we can look at the staffing issue, but not look at it just, we need a guy. But we say, maybe there are areas where we can partner to make this better. I think there's a huge, equipment
I was just gonna suggest that,
We
shared
went out-
equipment as well.
We went out and bought a used sweeper, okay?
Mhm.
Good for Ray. We're not spending money for a brand new one. He found one, hopefully it lasts. Point is, why does North Smithfield need its own sweeper? Can we share a sweeper with Berwick?
Mhm.
You know, I mean, those are things we need to look at.
Mhm.
And that's, you know, gets territorial at times. I know. Sure.
And then effectively, understanding all those efficiencies, now how are we going to translate that into charter?
Mhm.
There you go. I thought you were.
Way to pull us back in, Jeff.
You know, I do my best here.
Well, I would argue that if we manage that process and say we really want to complete that process, say over 12 months, because the payroll benefit side is going to be a lot longer than
Mhm.
people think, especially when we don't have resources to do it. So we're effectively going to do it internally. And then from there, how do we come up with an overall plan? Well, let's say, you know, we commit ourselves that over a period of 12 months, that process is going to be completed. And then that may beg larger questions about charter. It may say, well, okay, this is the plan the council wants to go with. These are some of the adjustments we're going to make to this or our charter. How we define departments, you know, in terms of partnering with other communities, are we allowed to do that under charter? I would assume we can. We have to have David opine on that, but,
Mhm.
you know, it's, if we really want to, for lack of a better term, reinvent town government, that's a big challenge. Or we could just focus on a department by department approach. So let's focus, which is what I'm doing right now, I'm focusing on HR. Not HR, excuse me, I'm focusing on finance.
Mhm.
That's my number one focus right now. And reinvent finance and then go on to the next department.
I still think there's something to be said about more of a community engagement approach.
Mm.
Because and just reviewing some of the notes too, what our logic was this would allow strategic focus on programming, field maintenance, senior services, community centers like Hallowell, and communication efforts. We highlighted current underfunding and operational challenges such as the Little League missing promised field repairs and scheduling conflicts with school facilities. A dedicated department could also better support community integration for new residents and expand amenities like community gardens and recreational programs.
Mm.
So I think having more of a community engagement group, it's just more, it's strategy and operations. Maybe it's not a department, maybe it's a future committee, right? That's inclusive of, like, I don't
Or
want to
the-
sit here and think
and-
tank, but,
An evolution of Parks and Rec,
Yeah.
Senior Services, or the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee.
right,
The North Smithfield Little League, North Smithfield Softball,
Yeah.
NS Hoops, the Soccer Association, and then the Football Express group as well. So there could be some sort of evolution of all of those together.
Which goes back to all of the boards and committees meeting
Mhm.
right,
regularly and discussing how we can work together.
yeah.
I'm glad we're creating a thread. And a connection for everything here. Which as we've all observed, seems like everybody's got their own little silo, and we're trying to break that down a little bit so we realize more efficiencies as we've been talking about as well. All right. Anything else? Okay. So as of right now, what I can plan to do, I think one thing I did want to pose to the group, and I can pose this over to Greg too, as he is out this evening. Denise, Scott's administrative assistant, has reached out to chair people across all the boards. So I didn't know if there was a meeting time that we wanted to make regular, so then that way we have rooms reserved, and then that way we don't have conflicts. I know we've been typically meeting almost the last Wednesday of every month. I don't know if that's going to continue to work for folks.
I have our next meeting as January 20th. Did you want to change, and then February 9th? Oh, no, I'm sorry, groundwater protection, wrong one. Sorry,
No, you're good.
tired.
No. Does that work if we do like the last Wednesday of every month?
Last
I
Wednesday.
think that's fine.
So that would be Wednesday, the 28th.
Yeah. And then that way, I think, you know, most committees are either meeting the first, second, or third weeks. I know we had that conflict with sewer at our last meeting. So then that way, we avoid everything, and then I can let Denise know that we're planning to meet the last Wednesday of each month. And then that way, we can also make sure that David and Joanne could be available for our next meeting to kind of give us an overview of the process, have him here, receive some questions. I'll pose some of the questions that we've already had tonight to him, so then that way he can be prepared to answer them. So I'll look to invite those two to our next meeting.
Okay.
And then at that point, I think our schedule that we had initially proposed to the council was that, let's see, in January, this was way back when we first started. January, we were going to distribute and present draft suggested changes to report to the town council. I think we could probably get that done in February. We could distribute and present, and then also solicit the public feedback in February. And then during March, we can continue to incorporate council administration and public feedback into the final report. April, we would be ready to present to town council our proposed changes, and then in May, have council approval for the referendum question. So I think we're still right on track of where we need to be. So, having said all of that, anybody got anything else? Okay. Then I will adjourn our meeting for the evening, and we'll see everybody back in the new year.
Everyone have a great Christmas.
You as well?
You too.